Good to see you all this morning. Thank you so much for being here. To our other campuses, we want to welcome you as well. We are closing down our message series called Previously on 24. If you're new here, how we do things, we have a series of messages. Sometimes they're based on a topic, sometimes they're based on a passage of Scripture, and we just kind of work our way through that. And we've been doing that with the 24th chapter of the book of Proverbs, which is a wisdom book in the Old Testament. So if you want to find that in your Bible, you kind of open it up and you're probably pretty close. It's just kind of, if it's in the middle, you just turn a little left and you'll find it. It's written by a man named Solomon. He was a king, and he was the wisest person to walk the planet. And he wrote down some stuff that still applies very much to our lives today. And so next weekend, we will start a new message series called Words to Live By. We're going to kick it off next weekend with the word sorry. So if you have kids, you should probably be here. Actually, I'm sorry. No, I'm not. But again, we try hard to teach our kids to say that word, right? Say you're sorry. Say you're sorry. You know, they're not sorry, right? You know, and most of the time we're not sorry either, but we're going to start off with that word. So let's close this down here. Proverbs chapter 24, verse 27 through 34. Do your planning and prepare your fields before building your house. Don't testify against your neighbors without cause. Don't lie about them. And don't say, now I can pay them back for what they've done to me. I'll get even with them. I walked by the field of a lazy person and the vineyard of one with no common sense. I saw that it was overgrown with nettles. It was covered with weeds, and walls were broken down. Then I looked and I thought about it. I learned this lesson. So he kind of looks at life. He goes, oh, here's what I can learn from this, right? So that's what he did. He said, here's the lesson from looking at a field that's messed up, right? And we know this story, right? This is Nebraska. We can walk past great fields, beautiful corn and beans, and we go, oh, that guy's awesome. And then the field right next to him, it's a mess. There's weeds everywhere, and a house broken down. We go, what happened here? What happened here? Here's what happened. A little extra sleep, a little more slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. Then poverty will pounce on you like a bandit. Scarcity will attack you like an armed robber. Now, Solomon, I told you, is a very wise person, and he got that way through the gift from God. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 5. That night the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream. God said, what do you want? Wouldn't that be great? Like if God appears to you, it's like, what do you want? Like what? Seriously? It's like, yeah, what do you want? You get one wish. Well, I want 3 wishes. Right? We always try to play the game, right? But he's got one wish, and here's what he wishes for. Solomon replied, you showed great and faithful love to your servant, my father David. So he's the 3rd king of Israel. He says, because he was honest and true and faithful to you. And you have continued to show this great and faithful love to him today by giving him a son to sit on his throne. Now, O Lord my God, you have made me king instead of my father David, but I am like a little child who doesn't know his way around. I don't know what I'm doing. And here I am in the midst of your own chosen people, a nation so great and numerous, we can't count them all. Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself was able to govern these great people of yours? Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing for our leaders in Washington? We don't know what we're doing. We know that, right? We know that. But we need some wisdom. Who can govern people like this? So Solomon asked for wisdom. So God replied, because you have asked for wisdom in governing my people with justice and have not asked for a long life or wealth or the death of your enemies, I'll give you what you asked for. I'll give you a wise and understanding heart so as no one else has ever or will ever have. And I will also give you what you did not ask for. I'll give you riches and fame. No other king in all the world will be compared to you for the rest of your life. And if you follow me and obey my commands, as your father David did, I will give you a long life. Then Solomon woke up and realized it had been a dream, and he returned to Jerusalem and stood before the Ark of the Covenant, where he sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings and invited all his officials to a great feast. What would you ask for? Like if there was the genie in the lamp kind of moment, like I can grant you one wish, what would you wish for? Lottery numbers, a windfall of some kind, great riches, maybe a six-pack abs, maybe a boyfriend or a better one or something, right? Just like, here's what I want, God. Solomon, in his humility, I mean, again, it wasn't in his wisdom he asked for this. I think it was in his humility and the realization that he was in over his head. How am I supposed to govern your people? This task is too great for anybody. I need to know right and wrong and how to govern. So God granted him this amazing wish and so much more. So Solomon writes down stuff, just wisdom tidbits, a little bit of, looking at life, and he goes, oh, this is what this means. And he wrote them down for us so that we might be able to live with wisdom as well. He talks a lot here in this passage about our work and our work ethic, and the fact that oftentimes the reason things are going poorly is because we're a little bit too much rest, a little bit too much folding of the hands, and all of a sudden poverty has set in. I don't know if you like your job. I pretty much know that, by the way. 70% of us don't like our job. 70%. So, we could put 30% on the side of things, right? We like our job. We're satisfied. We're performing well. We enjoy the people we work with. But for the majority of us, we don't like our job. We don't like our pay, maybe. We don't like our benefit package. We don't really like our coworkers. We certainly don't like our boss. There's a lot of, I don't like what I'm doing. I wish I could do something else. I mean, what would it take for you to like your job better, right? 10% raise, 20% raise, 50% raise. Would you like it better then? Would you like it better if you, right? There'd be all these things. How can I get what would it take for me? Because here's what I know. You will spend most of your time as a human being working. You will. About a third of our time is spent in work, about a third of our time kind of the rest of the deal, and a third of our time sleeping. I can't really do much about sleeping. Well, that's not true. Some of you are doing all right with that now. But what I do know is that if I can help you be more happier at work or satisfied, everything else, a lot of stuff at home will go better, right? Part of the reason we struggle at home is because we're messed up at the workplace. And we bring that home with us. If we can get this right. Now, one of the first things we learn about God is that God works. Before we learn about God's love, before we learn about God's grace, before we learn about God's forgiveness, we found out that God's a worker. Genesis chapter 2, right at the very beginning of the Bible. So the creation of the heavens and the earth and everything in them was completed. And on the seventh day, God finished his work. The work of creation. So then he rested, right, from all his work. He worked, then he rested. Then one of the first things that God does for human beings when he creates them, one of the first things he does for Adam is he gives him a job. Gives him a job. You wouldn't think so. You'd think, he's in the Garden of Eden. It's all inclusive. This is kickback on the lawn chair kind of world, right? Like, that's kind of what we think is an ideal situation for us. Is that basically we just want paradise, which means I'm not going to work. I don't want to work, right? But God knew something about human beings, that it was important for us, to have a job, to have meaning and purpose and fulfillment. Yes, there's times to rest, but God knew, well, if you don't have something to do, you're going to get bored. Now, most of us are going to try to figure that out. Like, I think if I had all the resources, all the time, all the money. By the way, that's what King Solomon had. He had all kinds of money and time and resources, and he could have not worked. Check this out in Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. The Lord God placed the man in the Garden of Eden to tend and watch over it. So he's a gardener. The first job of a human being was to take care of the garden. Getting a job was not the result of sin, like when Adam and Eve sinned. It's like, oh, now you tick me off. I'm going to make you work. I was going to give you paradise. I was going to give you an all-inclusive. I was going to make your life easy and leisurely. Not now. You make me mad. You have to go to job. You have to get a job. You have to get a job. But God gave Adam a job before sin. By the way, God gave Adam a job before he gave him a girlfriend. I think that's a good way to do stuff, right? It's like, you can't have a girlfriend if you don't have a job. Write that down. You should say that to your son. You can't have a girlfriend until you get a job. You're in middle school. You can't have a girlfriend. By the way, girls, if he doesn't have a job, you know the answer. Go get a job, then you can have a girlfriend. That's just free. That's free. Here's what happens, though, after sin comes into the world. Genesis chapter 3, verse 19, by the sweat of your brow will you have food to eat until you return from the ground from which you were made, for you were made from dust, and to dust you will return. So work got harder after sin comes into the world. And that's why we oftentimes struggle at work. But God knew that happiness, completeness, fulfillment, and contentment does not just come from laying around. Colossians chapter 3, verse 23, work willingly. So here's the advice for us as followers of Jesus. Work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. So this is an attitude adjustment stuff for the people of God. This applies to us, that when we go to the workplace, that our attitude is one of willingness, right? And we can control that. I totally control how I approach my job, my coworkers, the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to work willingly, not unwillingly, like, right? Right? So this is an attitude thing. And by the way, I think that attitude should start before I get in the building, right? Before my boss has to change my attitude. So here we go. Work willingly at whatever, so it doesn't matter what you do, whatever job you have, work willingly at that. Now, you probably have had some bad jobs. I've had some bad jobs. There's things I haven't liked to do. There's still stuff in my job description I'd rather not do. My first job, I was a paper boy, which was, I had a morning paper route. So we were supposed to go down to the end of the block, get a bundle of papers, unlock those things up and fold them up and roll them up, put them in the bag, deliver them to I had about 45 people I did delivered paper to. And they wanted, some of them were really like, hey, do not wake me up. Do not throw it at my door. I want you to place it on the step, right? And I'll give you 10 cents if you do, right? They're big tippers. So, I need to get that done early in the morning. So at 4 o'clock in the morning in Nebraska, on my little Schwinn, I'm pedaling around. That doesn't even make sense, right, anymore. I don't think we let people do that. It's kind of dumb. Plus, here's the big thing. What we told these little kids, go to somebody's house, knock on their door, and tell them they owe money. I had to ask, they didn't send the check to the Lincoln Journal-Star. They gave it to me, and I had to go pay the bill. So if they're not home, or they don't want to answer the door. The little paper boy is stuck. I'd go back, knock on the door. And the reason I went and knocked on their door to pay their bill, I was responsible for that bill. And if I didn't collect enough money, I didn't get paid. Then I graduated to busboy. Great job. I got to clean up your mess. You'd come into my restaurant, a family restaurant. You know what a family restaurant means to a busboy? Crackers. Little crackers everywhere. Because you got your little kid in there, and you're like, you know what? It's like your kid's just chucking those things and they're spitting them out. I'm now responsible for that. And I have to clean it in a timely manner. Because the waitresses, the waiters, they want those tables clean, looking good, so they can get their money and their tips. Here I am, I'm just a busboy. I really did. I hated that job. But I wanted to be good at it because I knew if I could be good, I could go be a dishwasher, which was a step up. That was my goal. I got to get out of cleaning up the crackers. So I worked hard, had fun with it, got promoted to dishwasher. I liked that job. That was great. It was just me and go. And I wanted to be the fastest dishwasher in all of Lincoln, Nebraska. Because I wanted to move from dishwasher to cook something, right? Those guys, they had cool hats. I'm like, I want to, and that was my goal. I think you can work willingly at whatever job you have. I've worked in chicken farms and pumped gas. I'm a pastor. A lot like my other jobs. Can we work willingly? And a part of this is like we get bored at work, right? Do you ever get bored at work? Sure, we probably do. We do this. Some of us do the same task every single day. It's the same thing every single day. You know what is a good way to get rid of boredom? Curiosity. Curiosity kills boredom. And that might just look like, hey, how can I get better at my job? And you ask your boss, what's it going to take? And he says, well, or she says, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to get a little faster cleaning up that table, and let me show you how to do that. I remember Larry Price walking into my dishwashing station and showing me how to get it done more efficiently. Larry owned the place. And I'm like, man, this is great. Larry's right here with me. I'm like, yeah, you just do this. All of a sudden, that got a lot more fun when I got better at my job. You might want to read a book or go to a seminar or network with some people. Just get a little bit more curious at your work. Seth Godin, by the way, a great guy. You should be reading his stuff on Twitter. Seth Godin writes this. He says, offer me something I'm passionate about, and I'll show up with all my energy, effort, and care. That's what people say today. I need to find my passion. I need to work in that area. But he says, that's a great way to hide. Because if I'm not passionate about my work, I don't have to work very hard. He says, because nothing is good enough to earn your passion before you do it. Perhaps in concept it's worthy, but as soon as you closely examine the details and the pitfalls, it's easy to decide to wait for a better offer. What about the opposite? Offer me a chance to contribute, and I'll work hard on it with focus. And once I begin to make progress, I will become passionate about it. Passion comes from feeling needed, approaching mastery from doing work that really, truly matters. Cy Wakeman says, daydreaming of a perfect boss, the perfect schedule, and technology that works perfectly is fruitless. It's just not reality. Proverbs 14, verse 23. Work brings profit, but mere talk leads to poverty. I know I work with a lot of millennials. And millennials get a really bad rap about work ethic and, kind of being lazy and think. I have found the opposite to be true. The young folks on our team work incredibly hard. They're hard work and they're passionate about what they do. And they know their work really matters. And I'm inspired by how they do their job. They're not all talk. One of the things that really messes us up at work is that is that we often tie our work to our identity. So, in fact, that's usually kind of how it goes. Like when I meet a person, one of the first things that kind of comes up in the conversation is, hey, what do you do for a living? I've kind of decided I'm going to change things up. So when somebody says, hey, what do you do for a living? Because I really don't like telling them I'm a pastor because that shuts things off. Because all of a sudden they become super holy. Like, oh yes. I go to church at St. Wenceslas Timothy, holy name for fish fries. By the way, fish fry moments are upon us. That does not count as church attendance. It's a wonderful thing to do, to be able to support the local economy and to eat some good food. I think that's great. But, hey, I went Friday night. Oh, really? Oh, I thought that counted. No, it does not count. Can't quite remember what I was talking about. Oh, yeah. So if you meet a person, like, help him, Lord, right? That when you meet a person, you talk about who you are, what you do for a living, that kind of comes up. So I decided I'm thinking to change things up a little bit. Somebody says, hey, what do you do for a living? I say, I mostly lay on the couch. See the response. Oh, dude, I wish I could. Yeah. But I want people to think highly of me. I do. I want people to think highly of me. And you probably do too. Because our identity oftentimes is tied up in our work, right? Here's what I know about me. Someday I won't be a pastor. I won't. Someday you won't be a lawyer or a CEO or a flight attendant or an insurance salesman. You won't. That won't be it, right? So if your identity is tied up in that, you won't know who you are. You won't know who you are when that day comes and they say, you're done working here. You're not good, right? You retired. And I've watched men and women who have retired and they don't know what to do day one after they've been working, right? And they found their identity in this, but now I'm just retired. And they shrivel up and die. Sometimes even physically die because they don't have a purpose for living. Because it was to make money. And it was to be on top. And it was, right? Because now I don't have any reason to keep going. That's why many of us hang on to that stuff for way too long. Now, it might be because we really, truly enjoy the work, too. There's no doubt about it. But it just can't be who I am. There has to be way more than that. Ecclesiastes 5:18 says, even so, I have noticed one thing at least that is good. It is good for people to eat, drink, and enjoy their work. There you go. Under the sun during the short life God has given them. And to accept their lot in life. All right, this is who I am. And it is a good thing to receive wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it. So that's good stuff right there, right? And if we're fortunate to have that, so I can enjoy your work, right? Enjoy your work and accept your lot in life. That is a gift from God. To be able to enjoy what I do for a living and accept who I am as a person. That's a gift from God. He mentions this during a short life that God has given us. Chuck Swindoll says life's kind of like a coin. You can spend it any way you want, but you can only spend it once. Your job, your career is one dimension, and you should and can work hard. And the Bible does, in fact, commend hard work. But when I get my identity from that, I begin to lose all perspective on who I am as a person. And my priorities get all messed up. Proverbs chapter 23, verse 4. Don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. By the way, this will never be taught at Harvard Business School. It won't be taught at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, in a business college. You will not hear this at a seminar for any business that I know of. Don't wear yourself out. In fact, we usually say this, you got to do this. Work hard, get up early, work hard, right? add a few shifts on Saturday and Sunday, by the way. And some of you might be thinking, oh, man, let's go. I got to get to the office. So don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Be wise enough to know when to quit. Ha! In the blink of an eye, wealth disappears, for it will sprout wings and fly away like an eagle. Ecclesiastes 5, verse 12. People who work hard sleep well, whether they eat little or much. But the rich seldom get a good night's sleep. If you can't sleep, maybe you're just trying to do too much. Because no amount of success at your job is going to compensate for what's going on at home. And if you're losing it at home, you're going to lose everywhere. Doesn't matter how successful, how many plaques, how many trophies, how many things you got on the shelf. If you lose at home, you're losing. So when he says people who work hard sleep well, whether they eat a little, all right? That's wisdom stuff. One of the most effective tools for opening doors for sharing Christ is how I work, how I do my job. I think it's one of the most effective tools for you and me as we work, right? We go to our work. Now, I work in a place where it's all Christian, right? So everybody, in fact, I'm pretty sure, I'm going to assume that. So I envy you. I envy you because every day you go to the mission field. I don't go to a mission field. You go to a mission field. I have to find other avenues to be able to do that. And I try very hard to get engaged in people's lives in different avenues. But every single day, you go to a mission field. We send people to Mexico, right? And we get pretty amped up about that. We're sending people to India. And we get pretty hyped about that. But every single week, I unleash a great mission field, right? Missionaries to a field that is ripe for the harvest. 8 out of 10 of your coworkers aren't going to church. They're not. I think part of the reason you're at your work, maybe the reason, the purpose you have your job right now is so that you can share your faith with someone. But they won't listen to you if you're a sluggard, if you're lazy. If you don't help them be good at their job, why would they ever ask you about your church? If your work performance is just meeting expectations. But if you're a good teammate, a good team member, you care about them personally, and you work hard, and you make them successful, and you make your company money, that perhaps someday they're going to say, hey, you go to church, right? You're like, yeah. Where do you go? I go to Stonebridge. You want to come with me? It gives you an opportunity of a lifetime. It turns your work into worship and your purpose for what you're doing to be so much more. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for the people I get to work with. I work with some amazingly talented and gifted people who care deeply about lost people and really want to make a difference in our world. They continue to inspire me and push me in ways I never even really wanted to go. I'm grateful for their energy, their strength, and their courage to do good work. Lord, for the folks here today, all our campuses, and listening to this message, I want to release them and unleash them into the mission field in Omaha, Fremont, in Millard, Benson, and Blair, Council Bluffs, and wherever we find ourselves at tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. In Christ we pray.